Welcome to this thing, which I don't know what it is. It might become something, but welcome to Dash. And I will ऐसे post edit में मैं इसको fill कर दूँगा. So the idea is कि I'm going to have open conversations with people from different backgrounds, maybe different faiths, different ideologies. And then the idea is to have these open conversations and gain knowledge and learn something and to shape your own ideology, right? So I want to gather as much information as I can from the world, and I want to see different worldviews from people who already have certain worldviews about things, and then eventually this will help me shape my own ideologies. So like I'm going to start, for example, with you, and so the conversations can be about religion, they can be about politics, they can be about a specific social issue, I don't know. And I'm going to talk with people from all walks of life, and this is the first one that I'm doing. I'm going to tell you what are the rules of this conversation, because there has to be some rules to make sure this stays civil, and we don't end up in a more chaotic situation than we were in before we started. Okay? So the first rule is, and you need to know this, that at any point of time, no matter what language I use or what words I say, I do not have any bad intent towards you, towards your ideas, towards your faith, and the objective of this whole thing is not to disrespect you or devalue you or your opinions or faith whatsoever. Okay? The main goal behind this is that I want to gain more knowledge, so that I can either strengthen my own opinions or I can reshape them so that they make more sense to me, right? And I want to go deeper and deeper into why I think the way I think, and where does this come from? That's I think that's the core question I want to answer. Where does my thinking come from? We'll try to stick to that conversation and try not to run into tangents. That might happen, which is fine, but we need to circle back to the original conversation. Okay? And also there will be points where there will be some tension between us. So on those points we have to agree to disagree. Okay?
All the things that you're mentioning right now, I thought these were already, sort of like understood.
Generally they are, but more often than not it happens that they're not. So yeah, and the final thing is that this will be recorded. There's no time limit to it. I don't know how long we'll talk. I have to leave in 2 hours, so I think that will be the time limit. But if it goes longer than that, I don't care if it's interesting enough. Yeah. Okay. So let's start. So I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell me something about what you do, who you are, and how did you get to where you are now, and where were you before this?
Yeah, so my name is Jeremiah, and like Mohit just mentioned, we know each other since school. So we've known each other for the past 14 years, and yeah, like you said, we lost touch in between, and then we got back. So after school, I did my English honors from Delhi University, which I screwed up real bad because of some reasons. To be honest, I was a drug addict. I was a junkie, and I was not serious about life back then. And after that, I started working in different places to feed my habit, and all of that. And then I got caught up in shit until 2017. I came to a point where I thought life was not going ahead, and I had no future, and I was not doing anything positive or good with my life. And all of a sudden, this might seem really funny, but I watched a documentary, and in that documentary I saw a couple of people talking about if the name of the documentary was The Case for Christ. So there was this one journalist whose wife recently found faith, and she had started going to the church, and this guy, he never believed, he was an atheist. And so slowly and gradually what happened was he did not agree to the fact that his wife is going to church and attending religious things and all of that. he could not stop her, and she kept going, and he started seeing positive changes in her. But this guy, he never went to church. He was still very much, like an atheist or skeptic maybe. So what he started doing was, since he was a journalist, he started investigating about Christ, on who Christ was, if he really exists or not, and is he the same guy that the Bible talks about, and all of that. And then he started going on this quest. He interviewed a lot of people, he read articles, he went through historical information and all of that, and during which he interviewed a couple of people who held doctorates and scholarly degrees in theology, and that really caught my attention. And that was like, that was I don't know, for some reason it came to my heart that, maybe even I should do something like that. And all of a sudden I had this deep urge to go and study theology, and that's how I ended up doing theology. It might seem a little strange that I found my career path out of a 60-minute documentary, but yeah, that is that is what happened to me. And since 2017, I've been off drugs, I've been off intoxicants, I've been not drinking, not smoking, and all of that, and things have been going really good for me. And right now I'm doing theology. I'm in my it's a 5-year course. It's called Bachelor's in Divinity. And no, I'm not in Hogwarts, but so and it's a 5-year course. I completed my third year just recently, and now I'm stepping into fourth. And yeah, I'll graduate by 2022.
Okay, that's a very nice introduction. And if I'm not wrong, after 2020, you're gonna start preaching, right? You're gonna be a priest in a.
I already preach. I already preach in churches. People already call me pastor. I already go to churches, and because I mean, there is no such obligation that they should let me preach. But I don't know. Probably all the pastors, they, whenever I go to a church, they, ask me if I'm in a Bible college, and when they know that I am in a Bible college, then they let me preach. Probably, like, say, sometimes they give me 15 minutes, sometimes they give me half an hour, or if they know me really well, they give me 1 hour to speak in the church. And yeah, that's, and plus I get a lot of undeserved respect. The elderly, they get up, and and all of that. But I really don't think I deserve all of that, and I don't identify myself as a pastor yet, because I want to be because I've never felt the calling for that. I don't think I'll be able to pastor a church, but I want to be more into Bible teaching. I want to be a public speaker and also a counselor.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So,
Yeah.
like an evangelist.
Evangelist, yeah, maybe you can call me that, but I don't know.
Okay, interesting.
Like,
So,
Bible says every you a believer, or a believer has all kinds of roles.
mhm,
He's also a pastor, he's also an evangelist, he's also a prophet, he's also a teacher, he's also a shepherd,
mhm.
all of that,
Yeah,
all of that.
I also think that if you believe in something, if you really believe in something, and you feel that yes, that is true, you should try and get your message across to as many people in as many ways
Mhm.
as possible.
Right, right,
Not force it through their mouths, but try to reason with them and try to
exactly,
give them your
exactly,
point of view, and then it's up to them to accept it or not.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with the first question. Very cliche question. What is God? What's your definition of God?
Um, well, in simple terms, I believe God is the creator. Obviously, He created everything, and He's in control of everything that's happening. And the Bible says that God is the Alpha and the Omega. Alpha and the Omega means Alpha is the first letter of Greek alphabets, and Omega is the last letter of Greek alphabet. So basically, he's the beginning and the end. There is, he is out of the time and space continuum, and he's been there since forever, and he will be there forever. Get it? And he's omnipotent. He's omnipresent. Omnipotent means he is he knows everything. and omnipresent means obviously he's everywhere, and he's in control of everything, each and everything that happens, and he knows everything. He controls the universe. He created the universe, and everything that is in it.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. So this is very this is interesting. Why? Because traditionally, when you hear God from a Christian perspective, you always think, oh, they think there's like this one guy in the sky, in the sky, and he's just like looking at everyone and like judging them and saying, okay, you're doing well, you're going to heaven,
That's
you're
not.
doing bad,
No, no.
you're going to hell.
That's a
But it's
very,
not a person, right?
that's a very vague description of God.
That's a very, I think that's a very simplified way of trying to put God in a box. And the whole, I think the way you said it, the definition of God is that there is no box. You know, it's
Exactly.
everything that exists is God.
You cannot confine God, to be
Yeah.
honest.
So my definition is somewhat similar, but I come to it from a different angle. What I think God is so there's a set of known facts and truths in the world, right? That if you drop a ball, it will drop at an acceleration of 9.8 meters square and touch the earth. We know with science that that is true. We've proved it. That is something we know. We know about germs, we know about atoms, molecules, all of that. But there's that's just like 1% of everything. There's 99% of things in the world that we don't know. We don't know how the universe works. We don't know why the Big Bang happened. We don't know why we're here. We don't know how why if we do good things happen to us. Things like that. So all these hidden rules, all these unknowns, for me, are God. So all of these energies that we cannot explain yet, we name them as God because it helps us. Because as humans, we don't like
It
not
gives us a
knowing
peace
things.
of mind, because
It's the
humans
peace
are
of
scared of
mind.
the unknown. Like
Exactly.
like a little kid, he's scared of the dark. He doesn't know what's there. As long if you turn on the light, he knows that it's a chair, it's a
Mhm.
table or whatever. But when the light is turned off, he's scared. So
Yeah.
naturally, we try to uh, probably bring things to light in order to be not scared of them, if I'm making sense. So
Mhm.
whatever is unknown to man, they try and term it as God or a supernatural power, or to have a sense of feeling that we know what's out there, so that they are not scared.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And we're curious creatures, and we're the most intelligent species on Earth. So for us, not knowing something is like, well, that's how is that possible? We are super smart. We should know everything. So what we say is like, what we don't know, that's let's call it God. God did that. Like, why was there a flood? Well, we don't know. Maybe God did that. Like in the old times, you did not have the germ theory. You did not know why the natural disasters happened. So you just said, well, the earth god is angry, so there's an earthquake, or the seas are angry, so there's a tsunami. And uh, and yeah, so that's how we turn god. And then science came along and we realized, okay, this is why earthquakes happen, because the seismic plates clash together. And then we found out, okay, there's no earth god. It's this, we can explain this with science. But then still there's a huge amount of knowledge which cannot be explained by science. And I think that's where the concept of God comes from. So for me, God is just trying to understand these hidden rules in the world, putting them down, and saying, "Well, look, this is how God is uh,
And
managing the universe."
Christianity absolutely agrees that you cannot fully understand God.
Hmm.
You can never, you'll never be able to have a complete perception of who God is. Theologians believe that whatever we know about God is from the Bible and the nature around us.
Hmm.
Also, the content that's in the Bible that talks about God, that describes God, is very limited. You know, we can understand a little behavioral patterns, and the way God thinks of us and all of that. But at the end of the day, we all agree that the information that we have about God is what He chose to reveal about Himself.
Hmm.
Correct.
And I think we both would agree that we cannot really try to figure out things about God himself, like
No,
how he looks,
not at all.
how many arms he has, how many dimensions he exists in, because we are three-dimensional. But we are trying to see the manifestations of God in the world, and we are trying to understand him through them, right? And those manifestations, like, this is a pattern we see in the world, and then let's write it down, and then we say God is doing this, and that's how God is. Like, that's
Yes, yes.
like from your
If
actions,
you
I
look
can
at the
tell
things around us, if we look at the things around us, then probably we can, because yeah, even us humans have not reached the full potential of our brain.
you.
And with our limited potential and knowledge, we can only uh, we can only think of God as, in our terms, in
Mhm.
human terms. Like we think that in a way how a father is kind to his son,
Yeah.
probably that is how God is kind to us.
Hmm.
Just as a mother loves her children, that's how God loves us. So we are thinking in human parameters, but
Right.
there is a lot more than that. God is beyond all of that.
Mhm.
We
And then
don't know
that
how
is
he
true
loves us, we don't know
to
how he's kind to us, we don't know how he takes care of us, we
right.
don't know to what extent he'll go.
Hmm.
Christians believe that the extent of God's love is that he, John 3:16 says that he sent his only begotten son, Jesus, to die for us on the cross.
Yeah.
So according to us humans, the extent of love that God has for us is that he came down to die for us
Hmm.
as a human. So a person dying for another person is I think the biggest display of love on this earth.
Hmm.
And we humans, Christians, connect that to God's love, which I don't think is a total understanding or a complete picture of what God's love is. I think it's a lot more than that.
So, and that's where I want to move to my second question, which is, we always think of God as a nice person, a kind person, a person who wants the best for us. But we know from biblical stories that God is not nice. He wants the best for us, maybe, yes, but he's not a nice, kind, loving father, because he kicked Eve and Adam, and correct me if I'm wrong about the stories here, but he kicked Eve and Adam out of the Garden of Eden, which was a very safe and like the best place, and he said, well, you disobeyed me, get out of here. But he also gave them like he gave them two
No,
things to survive in
no,
the
no, no,
outside.
no, 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 nothing like that. Nothing like that. So what happened was, God created Adam,
Hmm.
and Adam was all alone. He was placed in the Garden of Eden. It had everything, all good things. It had animals and all of that.
Hmm.
And uh, Adam and God used to come down from heaven or wherever he was. He used to come down and he used to walk with Adam. He used to have conversations with Adam, just like you and me are having a conversation right now. So what happened was, God saw that Adam was alone. Whenever God was not there, I mean, God was always there, but uh, physically he was not present. Uh, Adam was alone. Adam felt lonely for some reason,
Hmm.
and so what happened was, God put Adam in a deep sleep, took out a rib from Adam, and created Eve. So when they found each other and they were happy and they felt good in each other's company and whatever, and all these things happened. And so God had asked them to stay away from a tree, that is tree of knowledge, that was placed in the middle of the garden. So and naturally they ate everything else, and just like basic human tendency, we were very curious creatures. What
Hmm.
happened was, so Eve went to this tree of knowledge and she was sitting there, and she was a snake came, and snake is the embodiment of Satan.
Yeah.
Evil. Yeah. Satan, basically, not evil. Evil is a nature, Satan is a creature.
Okay.
Okay. So Satan came and Satan started, telling her all the good things about this fruit. And, he said that if you eat this fruit, you will be like God, you'll have knowledge, you'll have this and that, and all of that. And Eve ate it and also made Adam eat it.
Hmm.
So as soon as they ate it, they got enlightened in the sense that they first of all they realized that they were naked.
Yeah. And they covered
Before
them.
that, before that they did not have any uh, you know any sense of shame or anything like that. They were just free natural creatures, and very much connected to the world and all of that. And they realized that they were naked, so God came back to the Garden of Eden, and God called them out, and they were like, we can't come in front of you because we are naked. So as soon as they said this, God knew that they had eaten. I mean, God obviously knew, but he wanted to hear from them.
Yeah.
And God got angry because that was the only thing that God had asked them not to do. And God punished them. God threw them out of the Garden of Eden. God said that you don't deserve all of this. You need to stay out. But then at the same time, just like, this is where the other thing, the human thinking comes in, that God, even though they threw them out, just like a good father who would punish his children, he felt bad about it. I mean, like, a lot of times our moms might have said harsh things to us. She might have punished us, but at the end of the day she would come back and she would like play with our hair and tell us that she still loves us and all of that. So that's what happened. He chucked them out of the Garden of Eden, and he placed cherubs. Cherubs are basically heavenly creatures, probably like angels, who have flaming swords. Flaming swords.
Mm.
And he placed them outside the Garden of Eden so that nobody enters. If anyone enters the Garden of Eden, they'll be killed instantly. So, but when God chucked them out, and mind you, before that, there was tree of life inside the Garden of Eden. If you keep eating it, you'll be immortal, you'll not die.
Mhm.
But just as they lost access to Garden of Eden, all the fruits and everything, they also lost access to tree of
They're
life.
immortals.
Exactly. So naturally death also came to them. So when God chucked them out, God punished them. Punished them how? With a curse. First of all, the blame game began. I mean, God asked Adam, I had clearly asked you not to eat from the fruit. Why did you do it? And
Mhm.
he pointed towards Eve. It was
Yeah.
like, she made me do it. And God asked Eve, I had asked you not to do it. And Eve pointed towards the serpent, the
Mhm.
snake. He made me do it. So God cursed the serpent first. God cursed him. That before that, I think it is believed that even snakes had limbs
Yeah.
and they could walk and all of that. But then the first curse was that you will crawl on your belly for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That is how you will be. You'll crawl, and you will be a creature who will bruise humans, as in bite them, which is obviously what we see around the world. That's basic nature of the snake.
Mhm.
And humans will instead trample on your heads. They will try and kill you whenever they see you, or all of that.
Mhm.
The curse to snake. And to Eve, he gave a curse that you'll always remain subjugated to you know to the man,
Mhm.
uh, and you'll have to bear pain to give birth.
Yeah.
So before that, before that they never had children, so we don't know if women were always like that or not. But since the time of Eve, God had cursed her to
Mhm.
bear pain. Go through pain while bearing a child and while conceiving. And to Adam, he gave the curse that you'll have to toil. You'll not. In Garden of Eden, you got everything ready made. Fruits milte the, sab kuch milte the. Kuch bhi karna nahi padta tha. But then now, from now on, you'll have to work hard. You'll have to go through thorns and your rocks and all of that in order to eat. You'll have to work hard. You'll have to cultivate. तुम्हें मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. मेहनत के बिना तेरे को कुछ नहीं मिलेगा.
If God is such a loving father and he cares about you, one could ask that why did God just not kill the serpent and let Adam and Eve live in this beautiful, secluded, safe place and live forever? Why would he send them
Because
out?
they had already eaten from the tree of knowledge. They had already corrupted themselves
Mhm.
with sin. Sin is what? Sin is what? Anything that God had asked you not to do, and you did it. And Adam and Eve had already sinned. They had already eaten the tree of knowledge, and their minds became corrupt, or they started recognizing each other's bodies, and lust came into them,
Mhm.
and shame came into them, and everything that God had thought that these people should not have, they had already by then. So I think this is the biggest thing that they lost, that they lost direct physical contact with God.
Right.
After that, nobody saw God, and nobody felt God until Jesus Christ, when he incarnated as Jesus, and he came down, and that's when. Otherwise, in God's true form, nobody has seen except Adam and Eve.
Mhm. So yeah, my question is, um, are we saying that gaining? Yeah, is God saying that ignorance is bliss? Don't gain knowledge because knowledge is bad. Because once you have knowledge, you see the world for what it really is, and you see your flaws and your weaknesses. And it's better to just stay ignorant and just live in this world that I made for you and not ask questions. But is that the essence of that? I mean, is that one of the things we should take away from the story, that we should now aim again to reach that stage where we are ignorant and we are just blindly
No,
following?
we'll never be able to reach that stage again. We
Mhm.
can never go back to how Adam and Eve were. I don't think that's ever possible. So now, since that what the damage has already been done, we I think we have to live with, live with the fact that there are things around us. We have to look at the world and all of that, and slowly and gradually, things as they moved ahead in the timeline,
Mhm.
things really changed, and humans with their with their connection to God, they slowly they formed new notions or rules, set of rules that they should live by, since they are aware of the world. Get
Mhm.
it? Ignorance was not anymore. I mean, ignorance, I think, is a negative term, uh, but अब जो हो गया है, what's happened has already happened. Now we have to live with it. We
Yeah.
cannot think of going back to Adam and Eve stage again.
We now have this conscience, and I think that's kind of what came from the knowledge tree, that we
Yes,
give us conscience.
yes.
And now with this conscience, where we can see the world for what it really is, and we can see rights and wrongs, and we can be evil ourselves, and we can do bad things and good things. What, first of all, like, what should we strive for? As a Christian, what should you strive for? And who defines good or
As
bad?
a as a Christian, we should strive for not indulging in sin,
Mhm.
trying to be as as civil as possible, trying to meditate, stay in constant touch with God, understand, try and understand the love of God, and I would never say not sin, because obviously we have to stay from as much sin as possible, but we are humans. We have our own set of shortcomings.
Mhm.
There was this man of God named John. Okay, John was uh, a disciple of God,
Mhm.
and John did so many things for Jesus. He was a disciple of Jesus, and he shared the gospel to so many people. He brought many people to Christian faith. He did so many great things. He was a great man of God. He wrote so many epistles, literary works, and this and that. He went through persecution for Jesus, and all of that. Such a good man. I mean, a person that we would today call as saint,
Mhm.
right? That man, when he was almost 90 years old, he was writing this letter, and it's there in the Bible, and he says that if I say we are without sin, then I would be lying. A man who spent his entire life just for the sake of Jesus. He led a very good life, a moral life, an amazing life. And when he's reached his prime in life, when he's almost nearing death, even then he's saying that if you are without sin, I would be lying. So even he agrees that man can never be without sin.
Yeah.
We'll all have some one thing or the other. हम सब में गलतियां होती है और हम सब गलती करते रहेंगे. But Christian life teaches us to, so basically what Christian life does is to follow Jesus' path, to live as Jesus lived on this earth, which is not possible. But if we reach, close some a little, say 50 or even 70% of how he lived, then I think we are good.
Okay, so now the next thing is Jesus. That's the next topic. So, okay, and you may differ here, but what I feel is that so Jesus might be a real person, might be not, but let's assume that he was. I'm going to assume that he was. Then what I feel happened was there was this person, just like you said, John was. There was this person who people saw him and they were like, okay, this is a good person. He's helping others and he's the best, purest, and the goodest form of a person, and that's why people started following him. I mean, for me, I think he was also just a preacher or I don't know, a saint. But he was so good that wherever he went, people just banded along with him, and then they started writing about him, and they got devoted to him, and that's how the whole thing started. And of course, it's not how it is in the books, but like in the books he's the son of God or the reincarnation of God. But what I feel was there was such a good man in history with such a huge charm and charisma that people instantly got hooked onto him, and wherever he went people just followed, and he did good things everywhere. That's why his word is taken as the, like, he lived the life that God wanted us to live, right? And that's why now our aim is to live the life that he lived, because he's kind of an example of, look, humans can live the best way, and let's try to live like this person. And with time, I think with the books he got uplifted to a level of being godlike. That's what I feel, and you don't have to agree, but that's not the point here. The point is, um, now we are saying that Jesus lived in the best way possible, and we should try to follow the path of Jesus. I think Islam says something similar, but they say that there was a prophet of Jesus, there was a follower of Jesus called Muhammad, and then he lived the book, he lived the way God wanted us to live, and we should live the way that he lived. And then, but we do see that as a person, he had many character flaws, and then if we try to emulate that, those character flaws, and we are saying that this is the perfect, this is the best, top shelf, top level, and then in that top shelf, top level, we find flaws, and then we are saying we're telling people, well, live like that, that's the best. So same with the Jesus character, that there might be some flaws in the way he lived as well, but if we are idolizing him and saying this is how we should live, this is the best thing possible, how is that correct?
That's what Bible does not say that Jesus had any flaws. He was the only human without any sin. He never sinned. I mean, he was human. He was absolutely human. He had emotions. He felt what we might have felt. Even he got tired and all of that. And I think you are questioning the divinity of God. You're just saying that he was just human. He had nothing divine about him and all of that. But Bible says that he performed miracles, and he cured people and he raised people from the dead, and all of that. So I don't think any human could have done that. But then, uh, you know not just the Bible, there is historical evidence. There are a lot of people, there are historians during those times, because literature and knowledge was very much celebrated back in those days. In the first century, there were Greeks, there were Romans, and all these people. They were very, very educated, and plus there were many travelers who used to travel from different parts of the world. They used to come to India, they used to come to Israel, and they used to go to all these places. And there have been other historical evidences and literary records of Jesus existing, and Jesus being, being divine, being divine. Okay, and also the resurrection, the resurrection factor, that he died and after 3 days he resurrected. There are people who saw him in flesh and all of that. And because of that, more than uh, the life of Jesus impacting them. It was his resurrection that impacted his disciples, that forced them, that encouraged them to go to different parts of the world and spread the gospel. Like in India, Saint Thomas came. Saint Thomas was one of the 12 disciples of Jesus, and he came. I mean, although there is no direct evidence of Saint Thomas reaching India, but there are so many. I mean, endless number of indirect evidences that do prove that yes, Saint Thomas had come to India.
Okay, so that part I believe in. That part I agree that the disciples went
Yeah,
everywhere and started
yeah.
preaching.
So what I'm saying is, in this case, I would really suggest you go and watch that documentary, the documentary that I told you about, The Case for Christ.
Yeah, I have.
So
I am not saying that he did not exist. I'm assuming that he existed, but the part about the miracles and the part about him being perfect and without
because
sin,
because
that
because
could
see
also
because
happen.
because no human can be without sin.
Yeah,
There
and
is no
taking that
human
into
can be
account,
without sin. I mean, even if you look at Islam, I'm not blaming anyone, but if you look at Islam, they say that Muhammad was, uh, the
he
what
lived the
say
word of God.
epitome of how a human should be. But then if you look, he he got angry, he fought wars, he married children, he was
He had a 9-year
lustful,
old wife, and he
wealthy.
sex when she was 12.
Exactly. He was wealthy, he married a widow, and I mean, even by human standards, that's not right, the things that he did. I
Yeah, well,
mean,
okay, that topic I'll go in depth some other time, but that will be part of the podcast. But okay, just going back to the Jesus example, what I feel could have happened is that since Jesus was so great, and when the books were being written, uh, all it could have happened that some accounts may have been exaggerated. Like raising someone from the dead could have been him just healing someone because he was a good healer, and then people seeing it and writing it, and then it got exaggerated over time,
he
just
would,
how
he would,
rumors start.
he would and see, that would have been true if there would have been just one or two accounts. Here we are talking about loads and loads of accounts of miracles happening.
Mhm.
The first four gospels itself are written by four different disciples, and they all have written things from different perspectives and from different professions. See, Matthew was a tax collector. He was a little bit educated, but he was resented by the society. People hated him.
Okay.
Mark uh, uh, mark and John, they were commoners. They were, they had just normal professions. They were fishermen, and those kind of people. Luke was a physician by profession. He was a doctor.
Mhm.
Luke back then. So even Luke has written about Jesus healing and all of that. And if a physician who is, whose profession is to heal, if he's seen miracles happening in front of him, I don't think there is any, value of exaggeration and all of that. And not just gospels, there are other people who have written about miracles of Jesus Christ who are not Christians.
Right. So then, why is there a complete other faith, the Judaism, who don't believe in the New Testament and who don't believe that Jesus ever landed on Earth?
Because see, Jews and Christians, okay, they both came from the same land.
Yeah.
They both came from the same land, and also they follow the same scripture. Only
Mhm.
the first half of it. The Bible is divided into 60. Bible is a is an amalgamation of 66 books. Okay,
Mhm.
there are 66 different books, and they have been compiled together to form the Bible. And these have been written in different times. They were not written together. They were written by, I don't know, many different people from many different walks of life and many different timelines. So all these were compiled together to form the Bible.
Mhm.
Okay, and the first half is called the Old Testament. The second half is called the New Testament.
Yeah.
The first half is the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
Half is Hebrew Bible, and both the pieces together combined is the Christian Bible. We
Mhm.
also believe in the Old
Yeah.
Testament, and
That's
we
what
also
I'm
follow
trying
the
to
New
say.
Testament.
That why
But
did the Jews not?
exactly, that's what I'm getting to.
Okay. Mhm.
So Jews went through a lot of problems, and they had to go through a lot of shit. But then there had been prophecies of a Messiah who would come to save their people,
Mm-hmm.
to save the Jews. And throughout the Bible, in the Old Testament, there are tons and tons of prophecies of, how he would be, how he would come, how he would save the people, and all of that. But and their perception, Jewish perception of a Messiah coming was that he would be a king, and he would do such great things. He would be this and that and all of that. But all these prophecies were fulfilled in the New Testament. Each and every prophecy was fulfilled in the New Testament by Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And to be honest, it is impossible for a human being to fulfill all those prophecies in his lifetime, but Jesus fulfilled all of that. But the problem with Jews is, because they are a proud bunch of people, they never thought that their king would be born in a manger, get it, in a cow shed.
Yeah, he won't be a shepherd's kid.
Of a Messiah was that there would be loud trumpets. He would be born in a huge palace, and he would come. He would beat people up. He would fight wars. He would destroy all their enemies and all of that. But Jesus did not come to save them from their physical bondage. Jesus came to save them from the slavery of sin, from spiritual bondage.
Mm-hmm.
Because man was so corrupt, he was in sin, and men, everyone, I mean, even everyone would have asked, is my life right? Even I'm pretty sure even you might have asked that question to yourself a million times कि जो मैं कर रहा हूँ सही कर रहा हूँ कि नहीं कर रहा, I mean, मेरी लाइफ ठीक है कि नहीं है. एंड कभी कभी हमें लगता है कि यार इन सब के बाद क्या, इन सब के बाद कैसे होगा, क्या होगा, will I go to heaven or not, and all these questions. So people were burdened with sin. But Jesus came, and the Messiah came not to save them from physical bondage. He came to save them from spiritual bondage. He gave them uh, you know redemption from sin. इससे पहले क्या होता था, जस्ट लाइक इन हिंदू कल्चर, इफ यू हैव तुमने अगर पाप करे, देन यू हैव टू कंडक्ट यज्ञ, यू हैव टू do these things, you have to do those things, but those were only accessible to the rich,
The race and theology,
kshatriya,
yeah.
all of that, because the Vedas clearly talk about how a yagna should be conducted and all of that. And उसमें मतलब इतना घी चाहिए, इतने चीजें चाहिए, ये चीजें चाहिए, which could only be afforded by the rich.
Yeah.
And जो गरीब होते थे उनके तो पाप कभी माफ ही नहीं होते थे, because of which Jainism, Mahavir and Buddha, they broke out from Hinduism and they found a new path where these things were not needed to reach the enlightenment.
Yeah.
So
That.
that is exactly why Buddhism and Jainism got formed, because the commoners could not afford to afford enlightenment. Only the rich had access to it. So Jesus, when he came, Jesus spoke. Jesus showed them a path, because in the Bible, also in the Old Testament, there were things like you will have to do this sacrifice, that sacrifice, and you have to do this and that and all of that, which was not accessible to the poor.
Mm-hmm.
But then God understood that that's not right, that's not justice, and he sent his son, and Jesus became that sacrifice for everyone. Jesus died on the cross, and he became sacrifice so that everyone would have had access to redemption. And before that, redemption and heaven was only for the Jews. समझ रहा है?
Okay.
सिर्फ जूस को ही था, मतलब जो पाप कर रहे हैं जूस ने अगर वो कर दिया, एंड जूस बहुत ज्यादा सुपीरियर समझते थे खुद से, कि मतलब दे डिड नॉट mingle with others, and बाकी सबको वो लोग बोलते थे Gentiles. They referred to everyone else in the world as Gentiles, and only they identified themselves as the people of God.
And what is the
Which
Gentile?
I think they even Gentiles is anyone who is not a Jew.
Okay, but was it used in a derogatory way, or?
It is. उनको लगता है कि they have no god, they are pagan worshippers, they worship stones, they
Just like
worship
internet.
idols, idol worshippers basically. But Jewish culture has no idols.
Yeah.
So they thought ki they are the superior race, and since God is directly handling their matters and all of that, they thought that we are the ones. But when Jesus came, he offered redemption to everyone, irrespective of being a Jew or a Gentile or whoever. Salvation became accessible for everyone. And it's not like कि पहले Jews में ऐसा होता था, they had to go to the temple, Jerusalem temple, offer sacrifices, do such things, penance, this and that and all of that. But after Jesus came, after he died for us on the sins, the Bible says that you don't have to go anywhere. If you feel burdened by your sin, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to climb a mountain. You don't have to walk 100 miles. You don't have to cut animals. You don't have to do anything. You just have to bow down in front of the God wherever you are. I can do that even on a moving train. I can do that even in this room. I just have to bow down, ask for forgiveness, mean it, cry in front of the Lord, and he will forgive you. But before Jesus Christ, that was not the case. Before Jesus Christ, I would have had to do things which I probably couldn't have afforded.
And I think
So
if you look at religion, even from a psychological point of view, doing like just asking God for forgiveness from a psychological point of view, you're actually just introspecting and asking yourself to forgive yourself and try to move on. And I think if we ever find out a scientific solution to this problem, that why being faithful works, why if you're a faithful person you can live a good life, if we try to go through it from a science perspective, we will find out that well, you're just trying to understand who you are and you're just trying to fix all the bad that's inside you, right? You're trying to fix your machine,
yeah,
you fix your
but
brain.
then you cannot ask you know yourself for forgiveness.
The last point that we were talking about, I think I did not make myself very clear. So what I was trying to explain in a psychological way is that in that concept, we see God as a father who is forgiving. I mean, who you can go and you can ask for repentance and you can ask for forgiveness, and since he loves you because he's your father, he's going to help you. That's kind of the core idea. And now, if I take it from a psychology perspective, when I go and let's say sit in a church and I bow down and I say, "This is the sin I've committed." Let's say I stole. Okay, I stole something. And if you go and you realize that yes, what I did was wrong, and then you are trying to like you have an understanding that yes, this was wrong according to my morals, according to everything that I believe in, and I will not do this going forward. That in itself is you becoming a better person because you say, I did something wrong, I'm not going to do that wrong thing again. And then since you already know it and you've internalized it and completely understood it, next time you're going out there, your conscience will tell you, well, remember that you promised not to steal, you're not going to do it now. And that is where I think why do you need the father in this case? Like if I go to my actual father and say, Dad, I fucked up, I stole something, and he's going to be like, it's okay, son, I forgive you, but don't do it next time. And then let's say you turn out to be a better person. If I move the father out of this equation, and if I somehow have the moral strength to just tell myself that, well, what I did was wrong and I'm going to be a better person, do I really need the father? Do I really need God? That's my question.
Because then according to Christianity, it is God who placed you on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
It is God who created everything, so you are answerable to God more than anyone else. So if you're stealing, you're hurting God in the sense that you're hurting him by doing something that he said is wrong. In the 10 commandments, one of the commandment is do not steal.
Not steal, yes.
So the 10 commandments are divided into two. One is moral. First half is moral commandments, and the second half is towards God. So in moral commandments, this is one of the things: do not steal. So you are disobeying something that he asked you not to do.
Right.
So who are you supposed to ask for forgiveness to?
But then we're assuming that the morals come from God, but we know for a fact that even atheists have morals. I have atheist friends who know that stealing is wrong and they would never steal. Uh, and that does not come from God, that comes somewhere from inside them, maybe from their nurturing, or maybe it's internalized, it's from their DNA or something. But we know even without God that stealing is wrong. And we try not to do
Because
it. And if we do it, we feel guilty.
because even the justice system asks them not to steal, right?
True, but I've asked this question to my atheist friend, and this was a topic in our last conversation. That what if there was no law on earth, and if you could get away with murder, would you murder someone? Let's say you don't get caught, and there is no God. And he was still very hesitant to say yes. Being an atheist, he was still very hesitant. He wanted to say yes, but he kept going back to no because he was like, no, murdering is wrong. I cannot take a life. And
No, see, if murdering, mm, there was no law, then I'm pretty sure he would have murdered. Not without an intention, of course.
I don't know.
If your atheist friend,
Mm-hmm.
if your atheist friend's sister got raped,
Uh-huh.
and they find the rapist,
Mm-hmm.
don't you think your friend would have killed him or her?
Not her. I mean, he would have killed him. I would agree. We don't know what the people are going to do, but I would say the same for people who are religious, that they would have done the same. And like
You
we've
know,
seen,
no.
we've
That
seen
is where
this,
Christianity is different.
but
That
we've
is
seen,
where Christianity is different.
okay, wait,
I
wait,
mean,
just a second, So we know for a fact that there were a lot of religious wars fought in history.
absolutely, yes.
Most of them were related to Christianity.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But those wars were associated with the Vatican, religious crusades. The Vatican is messed up, bro.
So
The Vatican, whatever the Vatican did, I do not support it. True Christianity will never support what the Vatican
so you're
has
saying home
been.
of Christianity is not good, but
Who said Vatican is the home of Christianity, bro? Vatican is the home of Catholic faith, not Christianity.
I mean, then okay, so then this kind of devolves into a blame game where
Exactly.
Catholics
See,
are wrong and
see,
then say no,
the
I'm also wrong.
the difference between murdering, your the rapist who raped your sister, in your atheist friends, and in my case, is that your atheist friend, even after murdering the rapist, he would feel satisfied and he would be able to justify it. Yeah,
Mhm,
I killed him because he raped my sister, and
mhm,
I don't feel wrong about it.
mhm.
But me being a Christian, if I had done the same thing, it would still fall under sin and I would still be punished.
Punished how?
I don't know, punished in whichever way God pleases.
Generally, I think it would manifest in you feeling guilty and you feeling that you've done something wrong and you're a bad person and you going
That
and
is absolutely, if I'm a true Christian, then that would absolutely happen. And moreover, if I'm a true Christian, I would never go ahead and kill that rapist. On top of that, if I had killed that person, and not only I would be filled with guilt, I would have had to repay it in one way or the other somehow. Not and maybe I was even under the risk of losing my eternity that God has promised me.
Mhm. That when you die, you're going to go to heaven and you're going to live forever, right?
Yeah.
And
So
so,
either it's eternal damnation or it's eternal
mhm,
heaven,
yeah.
and I can even be put to eternal damnation just
So
because
that's kind of
murdering someone, no matter who that is.
that's a good let's say what do we call it, like a north
But
star.
then, there are so many complications around it.
Mhm,
So many complications around it. I mean, then you might even ask me, will a soldier never go to heaven even if he's a Christian?
mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Right. But there are so many other things involved in it which would consume a lot more time than this, and
Yeah.
those fall under Christian ethics,
Okay, so okay, let's
which I'm not quite familiar with as of now.
That's okay. I think ethics is an amazingly interesting and much more complicated topic than even religion. My question is, okay. First of all, let's find some common ground. The common ground is I definitely believe that all religions, not just Christianity, say something that is true, not in the factual sense, but at least in the sense it's a truism. If you do that, you will get good results. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think most religions tell you to be a good person and to do good things. And if you do that, you will live a great life. And in some sense, it works. It definitely works. I mean, if a billion people are following it for 2000 years, it works, you know. Now,
Hmm.
now coming to the bad part of religion is the extremism and the blind faith part. And I think extreme of anything is wrong, of any ideology is wrong, be it a political ideology, be it a religious ideology. And so how do you think do you think that extremism, like, let's, okay, so as a Christian, you should be like 100% devout Christian, follow everything as by the book, and that's when you're a real true Christian. Of course, you're a man, so you will commit sins and you will fall short, but like that's what you should achieve for. But then my question
Hmm.
is that the books, like language is a very, very, very bad way of expressing thoughts because it's too limited, and it can be taken out of context very easily. And the same thing could happen with the books, that one person could read the same book and interpret in a different way, and the other person could do the same. And that's why there are different churches, because they take one point in the Bible and then they have different thoughts, and they say, well, I don't believe this, I'm going to open a new church, and there will be people who believe that this is the true meaning, and then the other one, right? So
Right.
how bad is it that people can take something from the book, twist it, convolute it, and commit bad things in the name of religion? Do you think that happens? Do you think it goes
Absolutely,
wrong?
absolutely. It used to happen. It is still happening. It
Mhm,
is very much there in the society. So basically, see, doctrines are something that we have to stick to.
mhm,
There are, I mean, there are Hindu doctrines, there are most Islamic doctrines, there are Christian doctrines. So whichever you feel is right, you need to follow that and you need to stick to your doctrine. But the thing is, how would you derive a doctrine? How would you come to the conclusion that okay, fine, this is what is said in the Bible and all that is by studying his historical background,
mhm,
studying who wrote it, studying when it was written, studying the cultural context of the time that it was written, and by whom it was written and for whom was it written,
mhm.
right? So you have to study all these things in depth. You have to study the language that it was written in, the grammar involved, the meanings of those words and all of that. So there are tons and tons of things, parameters that are that are there, using which you have to look at the scripture that you are taking your doctrine out of. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically all the Christian doctrines and everything comes out of scripture, that is
Mhm,
the Bible. But today what's happening is, see, there are some verses and some things in the Bible which if you read it without knowing the context and the background and all of that,
mhm.
you can misinterpret it very easily.
Right.
Bible, I think, is one of the most misinterpreted books of all time.
Mhm.
So people have been misinterpreting the Bible in many ways, and that's how people have been, finding out, coming up with new things, new conclusions, and all of that. And like, for example, there are no verses in the New Testament that talks about materialistic prosperity.
Okay.
But many people have come up and made Christianity about materialistic prosperity, in the sense that if you come to Christianity, you will be blessed by money, wealth, and all of that. But Bible never talks about any of this.
Mhm.
Bible does not talk about material prosperity at all. It talks about spiritual prosperity. It talks about peace of mind. It talks about everything else but material prosperity.
Right. So, and then what? My question is, who is to say which interpretation is correct?
If you study the background and all of that, there is only one interpretation to it.
Then why are there different churches?
because people have come up with different ideas and things about interpreting the Bible,
And then,
which is
then
not really correct.
okay, then which is the most correct church? And I would assume the answer that you're going to give is my church and my faith, right?
Exactly. That is not the right question to ask,
Yeah, true, true, true.
or anyone for that matter.
Yeah, you're biased in this question.
Right.
Interesting conversation, and I think there's a lot of things I learned today, but this is still not a complete conversation. There's many aspects of
Exactly. There
that
are
to be
tons and
understood.
tons of things that you need to hear about from me regarding all of this.
People are listening to this. Is there any last words that you want to say? Like whatever, it's your stage.
I just want to tell people that that you go ahead and believe whatever you feel is right. Whatever, I'll never say that you need to believe in Christianity or anything. At the end of the day, you need to believe what is right, and if you feel that Christianity is right, then I would say go ahead and believe Christianity. But then you would need to be able to justify yourself in the sense in the sense that you need to know why you chose that path, and you
Mhm.
need to be very sure of it, not just because your parents were in that faith, or not because you know certain things that you read, or all of that took you towards it, but you need to have a personal conviction of your own. You need to have an experience of the god, or any higher entity that you believe is right. So just keep believing what you believe in and do good things.
Mhm. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Like, don't believe in something because your parents told you to or someone else told you to. Find
Yeah,
something to believe in and make sure that you believe in it very well, like 100%, and you're able to explain yourself
yeah.
when
And
questioned.
I'm also very happy that you, out of all people, are on this quest to find something that worth learning and worth your while and all of that. And I'm really proud of myself that I was able to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. I think like I'm also trying to find my own way. I don't know if I'll find it in any of the religions that we have existing in the world. I don't. Maybe I will find my own path because I think I believe that there's an individualistic perspective to this world. Everyone has their own experience and journey.
But
And for me, right now, it's important to kind of scratch the surface of all of the different ideologies that exist and then dive deeper into the one which I do find interesting instead of completely like spending hours and hours and days and years understanding all of them and then having that conversation.
if you go by that notion, you'll just be relying on your own human logic. And but I don't think faith is a lot far more beyond that. Because if you go ahead and scratch the surface and then dive deeper into whatever you feel is right and all of that, you are just trying to rationalize your faith. But let me tell you one thing: faith is not rational.
Of
It's
course.
absolutely irrational. I
Totally.
mean, if somebody comes and asks me, "Have you seen Jesus? Have you seen God? Have you felt Him? Have you seen Him? Have you seen miracles happening in front of you?" I'll not be able to say anything.
Yeah.
But if they ask me, "Do you believe in all of that?" I would definitely say yes, and I would bet my life on it. That is where my faith comes into play. That is why I say faith is irrational. Nobody in this world will be able to explain faith.
Hmm.
Nobody.
I know.
Nobody.
I know, and I look as one person, I don't even have access to the resources to be able to understand everything and everything about the world. I believe that the people that I am going to be talking to, they have a certain ideology, and the base root of that ideology is already existing in the form of a book or a religion. So there is a base, and then you derive something from it, but you add something on top of it, so that becomes your ideology. And I think everyone has a flavor of the true ideology. And I think in your case, you want to be as close to the real Christianity, the scripture, the doctrine. But
Exactly.
and I personally feel that I'm not trying to rationalize religion, because that's a stupid way to see any religion, because all religion is trying to do is trying to teach you something through stories, and trying to give you that moral and ethical code that you can abide by to live a better life. I don't know if I will ever be able to believe in something blindly. So let me tell you that at first. I will not find it in the traditional way. I know it will be something that is my personal faith. Let me put it like that. And I will be happy with it. And I don't think I will be ignorant, and it will be based in something which already exists, but it will be mine, and no one can contest it. I don't even want to be, I don't know if I want to be a part of any religion whatsoever. I just want to uh, understand where my morals come from, where my ethics come from, and what is the right way to live my life. That's it. And I don't know if I need books, scriptures for that. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, and that's where I'm trying to put myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Great conversation. I have to leave in 15 minutes for Potsdam. It was amazing talking to you. Maybe we'll definitely do this again, not maybe. And once I post this, I will let you know. Thank you so much for your time, man. Like this is amazing. I cannot thank you enough for being the first person to do this talk.
All right. No problem, man.
It
was my pleasure, and I really appreciate it.
I hope that you also learned something from this, and it was not
absolutely a lot.